Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 208 of the Canadian Football Countdown, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network. We're back after taking an impromptu week off the week before. We're back and ready to get to it. And we're into season preview mode. The CFL season is just around the corner, and we're kicking off our season preview coverage here by taking a look at the West Division. Just Ryan and Trey here with you tonight, at least for now. Adam, unfortunately, did have some internet issues. Gotta love technology. So, you get the two of us tonight. The great Trey Colback is here with me as usual. Trey, how you doing?
Fantastic, man. Yeah, I had to take the week off. I was working too hard. Mike was working me too hard, man. Yeah, a lot of long. Mike's a crazy guy. He really worked his butt off the last few weeks for this hockey tournament. So I can confirm he's not just dodging us. He's actually pretty busy.
Yes, Mike is busy as always. Always on the go with something for his company, Game Time TV, who is a presenting sponsor of this podcast. Learn more about Game Time TV by visiting gametimetv.ca. And we are live throughout the night taking your comments and questions in our live chat. All thank you to Game Time TV. I did get confirmation from Mike just the other day. He will be back in a couple of weeks here, making his triumphant return for our annual fantasy draft, I believe. Of course, you wouldn't want to miss that. That's coming up in a couple of weeks. But first, West preview this week, East preview next week, then fantasy preview or fantasy draft special. And then it gets into week one preview and our regular content throughout the season. We'll get into all of that, as we get closer to that and what that's going to look like. Before we go any further here today, I always want to acknowledge that the Canadian Football Countdown is brought to you from Treaty 1 territory, traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation, as well as from Treaty 4 territory, traditional territory of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Lakota, and Nakota and Métis Nation. One thing we did mention last time out on the podcast that I did want to mention again for anybody who may have missed it is we do have a brand new Discord community for the Canadian Football Countdown. We're looking for new ways to interact between episodes all season long, additional content to provide there that we can't, maybe don't have the time to fully fit into, sit down and record an episode of the podcast. But if you want to chat CFL with us, other listeners of the show, join the CFC Discord community. You'll get access to exclusive community events over time as well. None currently set up at the moment, but, we're constantly working through new ideas. If you're interested, check the episode description. There is a link there. Sign up for Discord for free. We're not sponsored by them, but we do have a Discord community, and we would love to see you there and chat CFL because we like getting to interact and chat with all of our wonderful listeners. All right, let's get into talking about the CFL West Division. 5 teams out west to talk about here. Trey, do you have a preference? Which team you want to start with?
Dealer's choice, man. Keep me on my toes here, man. Just throw one at me.
All right, well, let's go. Let's just go in alphabetical order here to start. Then, that's a pretty reliable way. So let's start off with the BC Lions. Last season for the Lions, a 12-6 finish, second in the West Division. They knock off Calgary in the West semifinal, but do fall short to the Bombers in the West final there. And that is, that's how the last season went out for them. Big story was obviously Nathan Rourke last year and his crazy play that dominated the headlines there. He's off to be with the Jacksonville Jaguars this season. What are the major storylines in your eyes for the Lions coming into this year?
Number one, Vernon Adams, if he can replace Rourke, kind of on the field. And actually, I'll just throw my hot take out here now since we're with it, and then I'll forget later. Hot take, BC Lions, they will be just as good this season, if not better, with VA. Maybe than Rourke. And not necessarily he'll be better, but just, maybe some new things, new pieces, maybe some salary cap that they will be planning on Nathan Rourke giving to him, open some things up. So, yeah, I think BC we'll get through it. I'm not too confident in a lot of the other teams in the West this year, so they're kind of my team that I think it's their division this year. I think to take it and get a home playoff game in that nice dome of theirs, and then they're just one win away. That's kind of where I'm seeing BC, Ryan.
Yeah, well, let's start with the quarterback position there because you mentioned Vernon Adams Jr. I feel like everywhere he's gone, he's never gotten the true shot. And when he did get a true shot in Montreal, he looked good. And then they brought in Trevor Harris, I think, in that trade. And then it was kind of 1A, 1B. And then he was the starter last season. And then Machocha said, no, Kahari Jones is fired. I'm going to take over as coach. And I want Trevor Harris in there, and then shipped him off to BC. And he kind of changed his game up a little bit also as the season went along. We're used to calling him big play VA, making big plays happen, but also taking risks and turning over the ball a lot. But in those games with BC at the end of the season, I think I was reading today something like 6 touchdowns, 1 interception for him in that game. Almost turned it more into the game manager type role. So I don't know what we're going to see from him this year. He's going to be the starter. I'm 99% sure he will get the opportunity to do that. But they have depth behind him again. They brought in Dane Evans. They brought in Dominic Davis. If things aren't working with Vernon Adams, you have some other quarterback options behind you to rotate in there. So, I'm excited for him to get the shot this year. Excited to see what he can do with it and hope he gets the starting role all season long. But certainly, Dane Evans isn't a terrible backup to have there if things go wrong, right?
No, 100%. And I when we had Derek Taylor on last year, I remember he asked me about VA, so I'm just gonna have to deny till I die with VA and to prove Derek Taylor wrong at this point. And if he's right, who can be upset that Derek Taylor was right about something, right? And if I'm right, then I can hold on to that and tell my great grandkids one day, right? So, but that's just weird. That came into my head when we're talking about VA. That's so long ago. There we go. Stupid button. BC's kind of the weird thing. Chris makes a point. No Butler, no Burnham, but they do have some top talent. I think Whitehead's still there, right? And they got some. Who did they pick up at running back? I just saw that.
Well, they're one of the teams that's the biggest unknown, I think, at running back because James Butler, 1,000-yard rusher last season. Now he goes off to Hamilton. They brought like 6 or 7 running backs into training camp this year. Seems like the lead one would be Antonio Williams, who had spent some time with the Buffalo Bills, from what I've read. But nobody really knows, I think, what to expect from the running back position for BC this year.
No, that's fair. But looking at their quick roster, they got a lot of young guys. And as we've seen in the CFL, the run game is the most underused thing for most teams. So knowing BC, they only really maybe have to run it once or twice here on second and short, a few first downs, and they'll just do what most other teams do and rely on their quarterback for 55 minutes of the 60, right?
Yeah, and when you are as stacked as you are at wide receiver, like Keon Hatcher, Lucky Whitehead, Dominic Rhymes, all 1,000-yard receivers last season for the team. Javon Catoy, Justin McInnes, that's some decent Canadian depth there. Alexander Hollins came onto the scene late last season as well. Like, there's no shortage of talent at wide receiver available to Vernon Adams, and maybe his ability to run with the ball also offsets some of this. But like you said, running backs, and Mike always says running backs are a dime a dozen, and we see new guys come into the league and take it by storm. And maybe one of these guys ends up with a 1,000-yard rusher this year. But I would lean towards expecting BC to be a little bit more pass heavy than run heavy for sure for this season. Also interested, on the defensive side of the ball, see how things shake up there. I think they've got a couple of young pieces there that are stepping into more roles. Looking at linebacker, Ben Hladik was drafted in 2020, or first year was in 2021. Emmanuel Rugamba had his rookie season last year. Both played good, but can they follow that up in year 2, year 3, etc.? And what does Sean Lemon at age 35 have up his sleeve at the defensive line? 14 sacks last season, I think second in the CFL. Nobody wanted him for the first couple of weeks and end up coming back to BC. Do you think he can still put up those numbers?
I don't know about those numbers, but even if he's in there 50% of the time or a rotation guy, that's not a guy that you would hate to have, right? Like just the veteran presence alone. Like if you kind of look at the blue, like compare him to the Blue Bomber one, with Jefferson and Jeffco, they're kind of getting up there too. But if you start rotating those guys in and key plays, run plays, or certain plays, the defensive mind, the D line is like the ones that rotate the most, right? In the defense, like everyone else seems to play almost every down out there. So I think he'll be fine. And no, he wouldn't count as a Canadian now because he signed with a new team, or would he be considered that nationalized thing?
I have no idea.
Yeah,
I have no idea how it works.
if he's considered that, they have a fair bit of Canadian talent there sitting on their defense too, right? A lot of Maple Leafs on their roster. So if he's that 50% -1 guy or whatever the rules now say, it's not a bad guy to have, and that helps your ratio out too.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly. Their offensive line, couple changes this year. They lost a couple of guys, major pieces along there. Joel Figueroa, Peter Godber, but they get Michael Couture in from the Bombers. That's a pretty nice addition there. So I don't know if you lose 2 good guys, bring in another one. I don't know how much of a step back you take there on the offensive line. I think also it just helps to have a mobile quarterback like VA where, even if the offensive line is collapsing a bit, he'll make plays happen from there. But big question for me is, what type of VA do we see?
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to make, Michael Couture, he joins his ex-teammate Suk Chung, right? They played together on the Bombers probably at one point. So, it could be some chemistry there. They got some other young guys mixed in with some chemistry. I don't mind their O-line. I was a big fan of Chung when he was a Blue Bomber. I was kind of a little upset we let him go with the Canadian, but Blue Bombers, surprisingly, we've had abundance at O-line over the last few years, which is not something we can say over the last few decades with our quarterback status, right? So a couple guys the Bombers lost, BC's picked up. I don't mind their O-line, and I think they'll give VA a decent enough time to again, he's getting old too. How much is he going to want to rush out of the pocket, right? But I think he'll do fine, and he's got enough speed and talent out there. He's just got to close his eyes, throw it, and some of those guys will just always make plays.
Taking a quick look at BC's schedule for this season here as well. They get the Week 21 bye, so no game in Week 21 for them. They start off on the road in Calgary, at home to Edmonton, then in Winnipeg. So a couple West Division matchups there, 5 weeks, and then a bye, 8 or so more weeks, another bye. Pretty balanced schedule for the Lions, all things considered. I've noticed comparing it to other teams. Short weeks, they've got 5. Long weeks, they've got 6. It's pretty average. Not a huge time. Their bye the weeks are pretty well spread out there for the Lions. So, yeah, I think they're a team that doesn't have a largely difficult schedule. For a team that looks like it's got some, good pieces across the board, shouldn't be too big of a challenge to hinder them from hopefully, being able to just get that consistency going.
You have to bring the schedules up now. You're just going to piss me off seeing that the unbalance and we don't play each team twice now. Why the heck does BC play each Western team 3 times? Like, what is that? And then they don't play Toronto and Ottawa, whatever. But no, their schedule other than that's fine. You're like you said, spread out good. Chris says July 22nd is Watermelon Smash Night. That sounds like a game we all have to go to, right? We'll pool all our money up together and take a road trip out to that one and watch Adam cry when we smash watermelons all day. But I have them finishing pretty high up in there. That late bye could come in handy too in Week 21. If they do end up finishing second, then they pretty much do have a bye going into the playoffs, right? And that's never bad.
And then the last thing I'm watching for this season with the BC Lions, I think, is what does the home attendance look like? Because they did some great things last season. Like they had those concerts, pregame. Like they were selling out a lot of tickets. Amar Doman did a great job, bringing people in. And I think part of the play of the team also brought people in. People went to go see Nathan Rourke and all of his success. That helped a little bit as well. But a lot of the kind of off-field stuff also. So what does another year look like? I know they've got some fun promotions planned. They've got a great content video team there. So let's see more people in the seats over in BC and really across the league. Even though Adam's internet did, or sorry, you have something to add?
It's a nice stadium. It's a nice stadium too. Like, can't ever complain with an indoor stadium, I guess.
Yeah, especially when it gets cold. Adam did, he couldn't be here because of his internet issues, but he used whatever small internet connection he had to still send us in his takes on each of these teams. His big thought on BC is watching the running back position as well. Is it Antonio Williams that's going to get the starting job there? Is it a rotation between a couple of different guys? That's something we'll be watching throughout training camp, etc. as well. I guess if we're continuing on with alphabetical order, let's move on to the Calgary Stampeders here a second. And we'll get into our full standings predictions and everything at the end of the show later on. And we'll do our West Division picks there. But let's talk about the Calgary Stampeders here next, Trey. 12-6 season for them as well last year. They finished third in the West due to a tiebreaker with BC and end up losing to the Lions in round one of the West Division playoffs. I think it's pretty obvious what the biggest storyline for Calgary is this year, right? It's the end of the Bo Levi Mitchell era. He is off to the Hamilton Tiger Cats. They gave Jake Maier the reins halfway through the season last year. Now they're giving him the starting role coming into camp this year. What kind of expectations do you have for Jake Maier taking over here, and I guess Calgary in general with Bo moving on?
I think he'll be okay. I think they weren't that bad with when Bo wasn't playing, right? And Maier held his own. I got to see that one game. It was crazy because they blew the lead to Hamilton late, but it's still hard. They had not a great, what do you say, 12-6 still last year? And that's what we're considering kind of a down year when you're getting rid of your franchise quarterback. I could see them doing that again, somehow grinding out the wins, and their schedule's kind of probably going to be the exact same 3 times against each Western team. And if they win 2-1 against a few of them and they sweep a few Eastern teams, right? There's no reason why they can't be the same. And Maier, he's still got some talent around him too. Malik Henry, Bagleton, Philpott if he's not hurt. Oh, Luther, you're going to have to say the last name. You guys can say it. I can never say it.
Hakuna
I can't. No, not today, man. Maybe next week. I've been saying stupid horse names all day for my other podcast, and I'm just tongue tied out, man. So, but I don't think they're going to be that bad. I think Maier, and it's his first year. He still kind of was in the shadow last year, right? Now it's his team, his locker room. I think that will do a lot for the psyche going forward.
Yeah, for Jake Maier, for me, this is his chance to really take that step forward. I mean, I put him when we did our top 5 quarterback rankings, a month or so ago now at this point. I put him as my number 2 quarterback in the CFL at this point in the season. He has completed almost 75% of his passes last year, even when it didn't necessarily seem as he was having those same breakouts he did the year before, because he came in for 3 games, I think, while Bo was injured the year before, and threw for over 300 yards in each of them. And it was, okay, Jake Maier is the next big thing, right? And then last season he was good, but, cooled down a little bit. But a cool down of still 14 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, that's not bad for a guy whose rookie year was the year before. He's 26 years old. He's got a bright future ahead of him. And with a guy like Dave Dickinson, as your coach, that is as good of a, support you can have there. And he's got a lot of help at the running back position. There is no team more well set up to run the ball down your throat than the Calgary Stampeders. Kadeem Carey led the league in rushing last year with over 1,000 yards. His backup and third string, Dedrick Mills, Peyton Logan, combined for 700, 800 there as well. Last season, they put up 1,700, 1,800 yards rushing. I think the Stampeders could be a team that puts up 2,000 rushing yards potentially this season. And that's, I think, one of my big question marks or one of my big stories I'm watching this year is, what does the balance at running back look like, with the fact that Dedrick Mills played so good in those last couple of games last season? Peyton Logan's going to return kicks, but maybe spell in there as well. Like, can Kadeem Carey lead the league in rushing still again this year? Or are these guys going to start taking some of those yards away from him?
Might, but you never know. I don't know. I have a bad feeling about the run game in this league in the next 5 years. It's you can only have so many years of Harris and Cornish and guys like that who dominate, right? But I think these guys, you threw me off with that one. I don't know. I want them to run. They've always been a run decent team. That's kind of what's helped give Bo success over the few years, because it's given him time and play action and stuff like that, because he has been a nimble, he's maybe not the most mobile, but he is not stationary quarterback either, right? So I think Mayer kind of will need that same formula to produce, and got to give your running backs time, or receivers time to get open, right? So
yeah, for sure. And those receivers, there's going to be some younger, newer pieces in there. I mean, no Kamar Jordan this year, right? That's a piece that they're missing. Drawing blanks on a couple of other. Richie Sindani's off to the Ticats. There's another big name that I'm missing there. Maybe not a huge name, but Sean Bain spelled in for some games last year. So, they're a team that has their couple big pieces. You mentioned them already at receiver, and then we're going to see a couple newer pieces kind of rotate in there. And maybe it's some of those draft picks this year. They went heavy on the Canadian draft picks at wide receivers. So, Calgary's a team that always finds the next breakout star, and maybe we're looking at one of those with the guys they picked up in the draft this year. Cole Tucker, Clark Barnes, good guys like that. Rice and John just, wasn't drafted this year, but just new, freshly in the league, Canadian receiver that I know I've heard they're high on there as well. Somebody, when you look at the Calgary roster right now, you're not going to know necessarily who they are now, but end of season, we're going to find out that they're, named an all-star.
Yeah, at one point I was looking at, you said Mayer 14 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. The only two quarterback that had a better touchdown to interception ratio was Zach Collaros and Nathan Rourke. So I mean, those are
good company.
That's what I mean. Those aren't two guys you're going to really be losing too much sleep if you're not outperforming, right? So, and one of them's not in the league, and you can always say Collaros, you never know with him. He's a hit away, or he's getting up there, right? So, not too bad guys to be in company with, and because the touchdown interception ratio is awful last year. You look like
across the league.
Most guys are even or negative, and it's like, so there's thinking that Collaros threw 13 interceptions and Bethel Thompson threw 15 interceptions on the year. That's so mind blowing. Maybe it's my NFL mind where some quarterbacks can just go like 2 on the year, and that's considered like average or decent. But then there's some quarterbacks who could throw 20 a game. But yeah, it's just
me when I play Madden.
Yeah, pretty much. I could throw 6 interceptions and I'll still win somehow. I don't know how, but yeah. But I think Mayer will handle it fine, and they still got Huffnagel in the press box, and you got Dickinson on the sideline, and it's a team there, and I'm sure the horse will even throw in some plays to time.
If Calgary's going to have success again this year, I mean, if their offensive line can do what they did last season, that would be a huge help. 17 sacks given up last year. Next best in the league was Winnipeg with 29. That's a difference of 12. And for Calgary, that's the best, the lowest sacks a team's given up in an 18-game season since 2004. Just happen to have that stat on hand. It comes up in conversation from time to time, I hear.
In those Calgary Stampeder chat rooms you're always in.
Yes. Yeah. You know me.
But yeah, I'll throw my I guess my hot take-ish for Calgary real quick. They'll have a new stadium announcement this year. No, I'm just kidding. That's not going to happen. That's not my hot take. I'm going to say my hot take is they're going to have home field advantage come November. They'll out-muscle. We're going to talk about more, but I have BC, and I think Calgary is going to muscle Edmonton and Winnipeg for home field. So that's kind of my hot take. Sorry, can you hear that? My people are texting me, and that's loud.
Look at this guy. He's got people.
My horse people, man. They can't go an hour without me. It's unreal.
It's a struggle. It's a struggle. We've talked a lot about the offensive side of the ball, defensive side of the ball. There's always going to be some changes here and there for the Stampeders. Each season they seem to lose a couple of pieces, but they seem to bring in a couple more as well. On the defensive side of the ball, they lost Sean Lemon, Fullerton, or Imolade. But they've brought in a couple pieces at the same position. Julian Hauser, a huge addition from the Ticats there. They've got a pretty deadly looking defensive line, even at linebacker, even with Jameer Thurman missing, like Cameron Judge, one of the top Canadians in the league. Micah Awe has been a solid linebacker. Titus Wall could have been a nominee for Rookie of the Year. Last year, he was one of my top breakout stars when we did that top 5 last time around. So this is a team that I expect for the most part on the defensive side of the ball to be as good as ever. I think maybe there's room for a bit more experience in the secondary, but there are some good pieces in there as well, backed by Trey Roberson. So Calgary is a team I don't see a whole lot of flaws across the board. It's just can they put it all together out on the field?
I agree, man. Yeah.
And more often than not, they tend to.
Yeah.
Adam's thoughts on Calgary here. He says the C stands for consistent. They'll be good again, but I think that the guy in the backfield will have to be groomed a bit, which is Jake Mayer. So watch him come light out the West on fire, because isn't that what always happens with Calgary there? I guess my hot take on Calgary is I think Jake Mayer could be a nominee for most outstanding player at the end of this season. I think he's going to have a fantastic season this year. I'm really high on him, and I'm happy they moved on from Bo Levi Mitchell and gave him the reins instead of wasting away his contract and having him go somewhere else. So I think that was a good decision for them there. Let's take a brief look at the schedule and try not to frustrate Trey too much here. For Calgary,
God forbid they only play Edmonton twice. What the heck is that?
Yeah, they play everybody else in the West 3 times, except their most bitter rival, the Edmonton Elks, who they only play back-to-back for Labor Day and then the rematch the week after. But Calgary starts their season off at home against BC, on the road to Ottawa, and then at home to Saskatchewan, and then they get their first bye. 10 weeks go by until bye number 2, which comes in week 15. Then 2 games, then week 18 bye, then 3 games there. So it's a pretty heavy early start to the season here for Calgary, which, if they get rolling, could be good for them to have those byes in the second half of the season to get healthy for the playoffs.
No, exactly. No, now it's bothering me because BC played every West team 3 times, and that I could have handled if it was all the same. But now why do they have an extra Eastern game? So give that Calgary an extra win because they have an extra East game, right?
Well, every year we think it's going to be the year the East Division comes back stronger. Maybe this is the year. We'll get into that next week.
Wow, yeah. Well, yeah, my boy Chad Kelly will throw for 500 yards a game. Oh, man. Anyway, yeah, that's the stupid CFL, the buys. It's as good as it's gonna get. 3 games in, I guess there's that long stretch, but it's the CFL. Watch them go, 10-2 or whatever, 8-2 in that period.
Even though they do have like 10 games between their bye weeks, they also, I think, are one of the teams that has the most long weeks and the least short weeks on their schedule. So, even then you're not playing, 5 days later. In a lot of their cases, half their season, they're playing at least 8 days after their last game, just the way things work out with their schedules. So it could be a grueling stretch there for 10 games, but also maybe an extra day or 2 of prep time in between. And other than that, I think Calgary's got a pretty decent schedule for them here as well. No big long home stands or road trips, really.
You could look at that game at the end of August before Labor Day too. That's Friday to the next Monday. That's a bye in there too, kind of thing, So right. That's 10 days right there. Yeah. So crazy.
Exactly. So I guess our overall takes on Calgary is seems like they've got a lot of room for success here, but we'll see. We'll see how that translates out on the field. Again, in the full predictions later on, of course. Let's talk about the Edmonton Elks next. This, I think, is going to be one of the most interesting teams to talk about. 4-14 season, 0-9 at home last year for the Elks. Last place in the West Division. They overhauled a lot of things this offseason, namely their wide receiver core, which they completely overhauled there. Where do you want to start here with Edmonton? What jumps out to you the most for them this year?
Well, like you said, they're overhauling wide receiver, and they also picked up AC Leonard on the defensive line. They made their Purifoy. They made some big additions out there, and I think that's all you can do. You're going to either have Cornelius, who you're kind of paid to be your starter, or Trey Ford back there, two younger, unproven guys in this league, and I think they did everything they could to give the either one talent when it's on the field, right? It's kind of hard. They did lose Lawler, right? Yeah.
Yep.
And they really have a decent running back, right? Kevin Brown's okay, I guess, but that's really a huge. They lost Wilder. They lost. I just saw his name here. Lee Trey. They lost people, so I think they'll be okay. I think they'll be one of those bubble teams. And my bold prediction, where is it here? I'll throw it out here right now. Edmonton, Trey Ford will be the starter sometime this year, either because of Cornelius' injury or performance.
Ooh. I like it. And what do you expect, I guess, from Trey Ford if he does come in and be the starter? Do you think he could take that job away from Cornelius, or?
I think it would be a long leash knowing Chris Jones, but you never know. Chris Jones could also bench Cornelius in the first quarter and then bench Ford by the third, right? You never know. And then he'll get Duron Carter to go out there and play quarterback or something for the fourth. You never know. But I think that the leash would be fairly long because they did kind of pay him, right? I thought it was like the $300,000 we were talking about that I'm still amazed he can get, but I don't know. I wonder if there will be that little bit of buzz because Trey Ford was athletic. He's no Nathan Rourke. He did kind of go to a Canadian college over the NCAA, but he was still very athletic, very talented. And I don't think they're going to convert two of their quarterbacks to those weird gadget plays like Loxley. So I think it's his backup job. And if anything goes wrong, I wonder how much pressure there would be from upper management, because maybe even if the talent's not there, would there again be enough for upper management to be like, put the Canadian in? We'll kind of get some of that second-hand smoke from Rourke a little bit coming our way, even if he's not as good. I don't know, because that's an ownership too that's newer and has been really trying to push things. And I think he wants a home win, right? And if the Canadian quarterback gets your home win, I mean, that's a good story.
Yeah, you mentioned the leash at quarterback. Adam, the thoughts he sent in kind of aligned that as well, that, Chris Jones, you had a full year. This is when the magic needs to start. Watching Cornelius, he's getting a chance to run the ship. But Jones has shown before a QB doesn't really mean much to him, and he'll change them on a dime. And I think that's exactly true. And this is where the magic needs to start. And for Chris Jones, it always starts in year two. He takes over a team. Year one is, a gong show. It's a circus. It's pieces in and out every single week. I really hope we see roster consistency from this team this year, because I think they have some good pieces. The Elks are one of the teams I'm actually most hyped up about to watch this season. And Taylor Cornelius, I have my eyes on, what kind of thing are we going to see from him this year? Because 2 years ago, very inconsistent, lots of interceptions, not really seeming like a starter. They decided to bring him back last season and kind of gave him the starting role here for the most part. And he actually looked pretty good at times. He showed some improvement in his game last season. Now they brought him in all the tools he needs to succeed with Eugene Lewis, with Stephen Dunbar, with Kyron Moore, all coming in at wide receiver. He has every tool in his arsenal that he needs to succeed this year. Now it's up to Cornelius to do so. My one concern for the Elks is the offensive line. I don't love what I see there. I think they should have upgraded that position a little bit more this offseason, but they didn't. They spent all that money on wide receiver, but does that money go to waste if your quarterback can't get the time to give him the ball? So I know Cornelius is a bit more of a mobile quarterback. He likes to run with it. but he also really likes to just chuck the ball as hard as he can. And if he's in a situation where he doesn't have a lot of time and is using that arm strength, he's going to throw the ball harder than his receivers might be able to get to it in the moment of pressure, right? So I think that's a huge key for Edmonton here. But I've got a couple hot takes for you on the Elks this year because I love the young pieces they have this year. One of my big bold predictions is I think Kevin Brown leads the CFL in rushing yards this season. I was very impressed with what he did in 7 games down the stretch last year. I think a lot of teams are looking at a dual back system, or at least a second guy to spell some carries off there. I don't think the Elks really have that. So I think Kevin Brown has the ability to lead the league in rushing potentially this year. I also think Dylan Mitchell at wide receiver could be a top 5 receiver in the CFL this season. Depends how much of a role he gets. With all these new guys brought in, hopefully he doesn't fall to the back burner there. But 9 games last year, 600 yards. Why can't he put up over 1,000 this season? So those are a couple hot takes I have on the Elks there. But the biggest question mark, I guess, is when do they win their first home game, Trey? Because they've got that, and maybe this is a good time for me to pull up the schedule here because they've got the promotion on right now where, you claim your home game seat until they win a game at home. So looking at their schedule here, week 1 against Saskatchewan, week 3 at home to Toronto, 6 to Hamilton, 8 to BC. I mean, I can go on and on, but when you look at the schedule, where do you see that first home win coming for the Elks? How long does it take?
God, their last home game of the year against Montreal, maybe. I don't know.
Ooh.
I mean, it's hard to look. If you look at it, Saskatchewan, that's never it's hard to say that. Then you have Toronto, defending Grey Cup champ. Never know how that could go. Next home game's Hamilton with Bo. If he's on fire, this is a team he's familiar with. Then you got BC, Winnipeg. I mean, I'm sure they could steal one of those, but if you're looking at percentages, right? Maybe Ottawa. Depends on how high you are on Ottawa, but I don't know, man. That's tough. I'll say the Ottawa game. I'll change it to that one.
The Ottawa game in week 12. So that's 5 home losses before their first home win. Hey,
you're not seeing what I'm seeing there and being like, well, it's hard to say they could beat Saskatchewan, Toronto, Hamilton, BC, and Winnipeg.
One of my hottest takes actually for the Elks that I didn't bring up until now, I think they finished with a winning record at home this year.
If you think that,
I think this team's going to be good.
Okay, I'll give it. Well, you know what? Because I don't think Saskatchewan's going to be that good. So maybe week 1.
I wonder if there's any extra pressure there from upper management of like, guys, we really need to win this one. We don't want to give away the tickets.
I think Edmonton's going to be better than Saskatchewan, but I don't know if like that week 1, I just don't know.
And
you go.
Maybe I'm being too high on the Elks. Maybe it's just that I saw a couple of young pieces that are good for the future there. I also know that Chris Jones, is known for building a stellar defense. And, we didn't see a ton of that in year 1. But again, year 2, he turns things around. And if he has the pieces there, he can make it work. The defense is good. The offense has the tools to succeed. I surely think this team will be better than they were with their 4-win season last season. I don't know. Maybe I'm a bit too high on them for turning it around so quickly. But I'm up there on the Elks as a team that I think could have a winning record at home and, maybe challenge 500 or above on the season.
No, I have them about 500 and probably finishing 3rd. But it's just, again, it's the old stigmas when you're looking at some of those teams. It's really hard for me to think Edmonton's going to beat them. But, new year, I guess.
New year and so many people changing places there around the league, really. So, and with Chris Jones, like we said, changing places every single week. You know, we can talk about all these new guys brought in at positions, but are they going to be in those positions come week 1 of the season? Interesting note for the Elks that came out a couple of weeks ago when they released kicker Sergio Castillo, who, you know, had a bit more of a down year last year, but is always heralded as one of the top kickers in the CFL. And seems like they just want to go a different direction with some camp competition at kicker. Were you surprised to see him, I guess, released and then subsequently signed by the Bombers like 20 minutes later?
I was surprised the Bombers signed him more than anything. You know, like you said, I think he's lost a little bit of his consistency. So, I mean, I'm not too surprised the team would let him go. It's kind of the nature of kickers. But yeah, Winnipeg, they just. We'll get to that, but oh man, they have 5 kickers? One never heard of football before. It sounded like from Australia, and now Castillo and Leggy. Like it's, I don't know. They have more kickers than anything else. It seems like, but I don't know. I'm not too surprised. No, sorry to answer your question in a long way.
Defensive side of the ball, you touched on the biggest names. I think they're AC Leonard, Lucius Purifoy. I mean, those are Chris Jones type players. AC Leonard used to be, I'm pretty sure, a wide receiver or tight end until Chris Jones said, come play defensive line. And now he's one of the top D linemen in the league. Purifoy can bounce around the lineup. Those are the exact type of guys that a Chris Jones defense is built around. That I think could produce this year. So I'm high on the Elks, maybe higher than I should be. You know, maybe it will come crashing down in a couple weeks, short time. But I think it's certainly going to be better than last year. And I hope for Elks fans, they get their home win. It's been rough for the past couple of seasons. I remember those seasons at IG Field, you know, right shortly after it opened, where the Bombers weren't winning very many games at home. And I still like going to them, but it's tough going to a game and just expecting to lose.
I still have my Drew Willie jersey, man. Sitting in the closet somewhere.
Oh, I got to break that one out again soon.
Oh, God. Yeah, okay. I'll wear that to my trip to Toronto, a Drew Willie jersey.
Hey, wasn't they? Didn't the Bombers trade Drew Willie to Toronto for a decent package back or something?
I think so. I can't remember who, but I thought it was him there, and then he ended up in Montreal after, I thought.
Yeah, something like that. All right, let's move on to our next team here and talk about the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Real unfortunate that Adam's internet didn't hold up to come in and chat about them here. There's the Riders hat. I figured you'd be grabbing that there. I guess we'll start off with kind of his takes on and rattle those off because he's the most in the situation for the Riders. He says it's do or die time for Jeremy O'Day and Craig Dickinson. Both contracts expire this year. Expectations are to turn the fortunes around in a hurry. And he wants to see playoffs at a minimum to save their jobs. Watching the offensive line, since that's what killed them last year, they got some additions that look good in Peter Godber, Philip Blake, but it's still a work in progress. And the wide receiver he's really watching this year is Jake Winicki. He thinks they'll focus on the run, but they need a number one receiver. He has all the tools, but at a down 2022, can he come back from that? Yeah, so let's break this down, I guess, starting at the first point. Final year of the contract for Jeremy O'Day and Craig Dickinson. How short is the leash for these guys? If things don't go as planned early in the season for the Riders, do you think there is a chance we see them make a move there, or are they riding it out with what they've got?
If there's somebody they can replace them with, that's always the thing with management, right? We kind of thought that with Ottawa, that maybe Lapo would have a longer time because who's going to replace them. So I don't know if they hire within. I think their window's shut. Like I thought their opportunity was what we keep saying Hamilton needs to do this year and win the cup when it's at home, right? And I think the door is shut. I think it's kind of a long ball signing to get Harris and be like, oh, he's going to be better here, and we're going to give him the same or similar O-line that we gave Fajardo and expect better things. Like, what's the definition of insanity, Ryan? You know, it's I have not too much high hopes with Saskatchewan. I know, God, for Adam's sake, for Adam's sake, I really hope they prove me wrong. Like, I'm not trying to be that typical Bomber fan that goes boo Riders. I honestly don't think they have much to go for. My hot take, I hope Trevor Harris has a good washing machine because he'll be washing the grass and dirt stains out of his jersey all summer, fall long. Some improvement to the O-line, but I don't think enough. Tough times in Riderville for one more season. 2024 will probably be the year. Tank for Rourke Jr. is my suggestion. If I he's probably not coming to the CFL, but if I think that's the guy that I would try to go for if I'm Saskatchewan. Harris has got maybe 1 or 2 years at best in him.
Well, they signed him for 2 years, but he is age 37.
That's what I mean. So if you have Harris this year and you have him as a solid backup, if you were able to sweet talk a guy like Curtis Rourke, if he doesn't work out in the NFL or somebody else, right, then it opens some things up. But I just don't see them having enough to. I hate it because I want Adam to feel better this year. He had tough times last year, and us 3 Bomber fans are talking about after on the bus ride home how good our Bombers are, and he's still crying from the Riders losing the night before. It's I feel bad for the guy. I want them to do good. I don't think Mason Fine is the solution. I don't think Dolu Gala, if he's on the team still, he's pending a DUI charge still, I thought. So I don't know,
Yeah, I started looking up the definition of insanity in the dictionary, and I went to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, and then, figured nobody wants to hear me just read the dictionary on the podcast. Or maybe you do. Let us know if you do, and we'll make that a regular segment.
That sounds like an SNL skit, like Big Words with Ryan or something.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll all learn from the dictionary together. Yeah, new look Riders offense across the board this year. I mean, Trevor Harris in at quarterback. Running backs are still the same. Jamal Moore, Frankie Hickson, great running back room there. Wide receiver is completely overhauled. Keon Schaefer-Baker. I mean, the Canadians are back. Schaefer-Baker's back. Mitchell Picton's back. Braden Lenius is back. But Kyron Moore is out. Shaq Evans is out. Duke Williams is gone. They bring in Darrell Walker, Jake Winicky, Sean Bain at that position as well.
Isn't Schaefer-Baker out for a while too, though?
He is out for a while, okay. I believe. Yes, at least the start of the season there. And new offensive coordinator, Jason Maas is out, and running back coach Kelly Jeffrey is in at the offensive coordinator position there. So, all the focus is on the offensive line and whether that's going to be improved, and it's going to need to be improved because 70-something times on the ground last year for Cody Fajardo, like you can't have that, especially Trevor Harris, a quarterback that I think is even less mobile than Fajardo is. Like if the offensive line can't give him the time he needs back there, you're going to be in trouble. And I don't feel like Trevor Harris personally is the end. I'm not high on him. I'm kind of in the middle. I think he does do good things. He's boom or bust. He has games where it looks like Trevor Harris can light up the world, and then he has games where he just can't put the ball into the end zone, and that's been the knock on him almost everywhere he's gone, and the reason a lot of people don't put him in that upper echelon of quarterbacks in the CFL. So for a team that I think almost needed to settle things down a little bit last year and get some consistency, I do have some concerns there. But what do you think, about all those other changes on the offense, not just the offensive line there? What do you think, offensive game plan? Do you expect a lot of changes? Jason Maas didn't run the ball a whole ton. Now your running back coach is the offensive coordinator. Are we seeing a flip of the script?
I don't know, just because they're a running like most times quarterbacks are the running back quarterbacks because they know where the running back's supposed to be. So that's not when you're a head coach. I don't know if you want to give your run. I don't know. I don't see them. They have the talent at running back. That's probably the one position where I'm like, okay. And their receivers, if they stay healthy, I think they have a shot. But I just don't think Trevor Harris is the guy to get it out to them. But I guess the key to success would be run the ball. I mean, and it's going to get cold fast in Regina, and there's going to be big games in September, October, November that they could win with that, right? And that's usually how they beat us on Labor Day banjo balls, right? Run the ball down our throats, Ryan. So it seems like the Bombers can never stop a running back on Labor Day. So I guess that's their key.
Defensive side of the ball, I mean, they look pretty good there. Linebacker specifically, they're kind of stacked with Larry Dean, Derek Moncrief, and Micah Tights. I mean, that's probably the best linebacker core in the CFL, to be honest. Along there, Pete Robertson, Anthony Lanier, Micah Johnson, Stephen Banks, solid on the defensive line, and a bunch of good pieces in the defensive backfield too, including Roland Milligan, who put up 71 tackles in his sophomore season last year. So I think it's a good team, pretty good team on defense with just a lot of unknowns on offense. With those pieces where it seems like they've got the pieces to succeed, but can they gel and produce, to the level they used to? Because even those guys they brought in at wide receiver, Darrell Walker and Jake Winicky are the big two. These are guys that have been top tier receivers in the CFL, but had down seasons here and there over the past couple of years. So, is this a scenario that brings them back to the top? Is my big question.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'm really not high on the Rough Riders, and they have good defensive points or pieces like you said. I'm just worried about their secondary. They let so many big plays out. Like, again, I was at Labor Day, and there's just sometimes they had the Bombers second and long or second and medium, and they just couldn't stop anything to save their lives, right? And that's what's going to kill you the most in the CFL. You have those second and longs. You need to have a secondary who can shut down the deep thing. So you force them to the underneath route. And I just don't know I don't know if you're going to just magically get that this year, but maybe they will.
Let's take a look at their schedule here for the Riders. Starting off the season, this is a weird quirk in the schedule to me that normally we see cross-division games early on because they really want to end the year off with those, rivalry games. The Riders don't play an East Division team until they head to Touchdown Atlantic and play the Argos in Week 8. And then in the second half of the season, Week 16 onwards, it's 3 games against the East, 2 against the West. So interesting schedule quirk there. It concerns me that this is a team that I think is going to take a bit of time to gel, and early season it's against division teams that you need to beat, right? To move up in those standings. Those are extra crucial. So that worries me that first 7 games, or I guess 6, because there's a bye there, all in division, if this team is going to take a bit to get going.
Yeah. Getting going 3-3 or 3-4 for whatever would be kind of a win, right? Through that. See, it's that same thing. Like, those are all just going to be dogfights. Like Edmonton, we were just talking about, should be better. Winnipeg, we'll talk about them next. Calgary, we think it's going to be tough. And I'm going to be sick of them seeing them 4 times, counting preseason. Like, I swear, we should not see them in the playoffs, right? Like,
you very well could, though, right?
Man, that's going to drive me up the wall. Anyway, yeah. I think they'll be fun. I don't know. I'm so torn. I thought I had this all settled down, and then you always make such good points, Ryan. And then you make me change my mind a little bit. But I still think they're going to be the bottom feeders this year. And Adam can, next draft lottery or whatever draft, Adam can be happy, and they can draft they'll draft Curtis Rourke, and then he'll get signed by some team. I wish he's in. If he better go to the AFC South so he can play against his brother like twice a year. That'd be cool.
That would be fun. Yeah, that would be cool. Long stretches between buys here for the Riders as well. Week 4, Week 12, and then Week 21. So after those first couple games of the year, it's like 7 games and 8 games between their buys. So they're nicely spread out, kind of even, I guess, throughout the season. But
is there a bunch of teams that have the bye last week? Because I thought we already looked at one that did.
Yeah, the end of the season is weird this year. Weeks 20 and 21, I think 3 teams are on the bye in each of those this season. So the last couple of weeks, they're doing 3 games apiece. I wonder if they're playing into a little bit how last season, week 21, was completely meaningless because every playoff spot was solidified. It was really boring football. So maybe they're trying to give more teams the bye in the final week to avoid that. I don't know. Maybe. That would be my guess. Yeah, a lot of
Yeah,
teams
well,
are
that's
gonna
exactly.
have that bye and potentially have 2 weeks, 3 weeks off before their first playoff game if they finish first place in the division.
Okay, yeah, BC, Edmonton, and Saskatchewan. Yeah, so 3 Western teams get the bye. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, interesting schedule quirk. I
Yeah.
would love to have somebody who makes the schedule come on the podcast one time and just pick their brain on how they end up with what they do end up with there. But yeah, that's big things on the Riders. Any other thoughts on Saskatchewan here that we haven't covered? I guess my bold prediction that I had for them was that Craig Dickinson is let go by Labor Day. But you made the interesting point earlier of who's going to come in and replace him. The coach's cap puts a bit of a situation in there as well. But overall, I guess my big thought on the Riders is all the off fields. Cut out the off field crap that they dealt with last year and the on field crap. Like there was something new every week that put them in the headlines for all the wrong reasons and seemed like there was no discipline for the team. And you're not going to win a ton of football games if you're not being disciplined. So I know a couple of the players that were involved with that are now off the team. But Craig Dickinson was often in the media talking about the actions of his team and maybe defending them. Which of course you're going to defend them, but it was kind of not well received. So if nothing else this year, the Riders just have a normal season. Like just have a normal year that puts you back in the fans' good graces and shows that you're getting things back on track. It might not be enough to save their jobs, but hopefully it brings back some goodwill to the Saskatchewan Roughriders.
And they want to go out with a bang too, because it's probably not their last job in the CFL, right? They'll get picked up by some team next year that's struggling that needs a GM or a coach, right? Yeah.
So you think they're going to be lower down in the standings? 6 wins last year, over under that for the Riders this season.
Under.
I'm gonna guess right around. Maybe I'll say like right over. I could see them getting like a 7-11 type season. I think the West is gonna be a log jam across the board. I mean, I predict that every year that it's gonna be a coin flip between all 5 teams. But
true.
All right, let's move on to our final team here, which is the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. 15-3 season last year. They head to the Grey Cup for the 3rd straight season and fall just short against the Toronto Argonauts. Don't complete the 3-peat there, but another great season for the Bombers last year. What are your major storylines for the team that come into this season?
Kicking. Get a kicker is number one. And not just get a kicker, but get an actual kicker is the number one. 2, I'm concerned about their age. Looking, Collaros is a year older than Bo Levi, and we're all talking about slow Bo. I don't know. I wonder. I heard this from another podcast I listened to. If we kind of have a Tom Brady mind a little bit, where we've seen him do it. Now we're watching LeBron, who's nearly 40 somehow. I thought the Lakers sucked, and now they're in the East or Western Conference Finals. We see these 1 or 2 guys in every league go to 40. So now we think it's the norm. And I wonder, because, Collaros did have some injury problems. The O-line's getting a little up there. He was on his butt a little bit more last year than he was the year before. I just wonder if that's going to be the issue with them. Yeah, they got tons of receiver talent, but I wonder if that's going to cause issues somewhere else with depth, like Dembski and them. I don't know if they're going to get transferred to linebackers and cornerbacks and stuff if there's injury problems there or something's going on. So, yeah, we're going to be stacked at receiver, but I don't know. There's a lot of age. What if Biggie goes down? What if Jefferson goes down? Then those holes start to open up a little bit, I think, Ryan.
Yeah, so starting with the kicker position, because that's the talk of the town, really, with how many different guys they did bring in to training camp. And, I thought Mark Leggio deserves another chance after last season. I think it was overblown a little bit by the couple of misses. I mean, the couple of misses he had were in crucial moments, which was unfortunate. But, if you take a whole season across the board, Like, he misses that kick at any other point in a game, for example, we're not talking about it as much, right? We're talking about it just like any other kicker. I thought he showed strides forward. He's Canadian as well. So I would have liked to see Mark Leggio get the kicking job and give him another shot this season. And that's maybe a hot take there for the Bombers. I was a bit disappointed in that regard when they brought in Sergio Castillo, but I also do think Castillo is a good kicker. 2021 Grey Cup, he deserved to be the MVP of that game, in my opinion, when they did win that one, because I think he went 5 for 5 on field goals there. So probably looking at a case where he's kicking, Leggio's doing the punting, which I thought he actually did a solid job of last season.
I really liked his punting because that was my concern when he kind of was a little bit near the season before, but he really got his punting down.
Yeah, so that's not a bad, actually, dynamic duo to have there. And it's competition. You have a punter that is a decent kicker as well. Castillo goes down. Castillo starts struggling. You can put Leggio in there and see what he's got there as well. Other things we were talking about, Zach Collaros being up there at 35 years of age now. Go back to 2019, as early as like a week before the trade deadline when he was traded to the Bombers. Not a single person out there could have expected him to do what he's done since then.
Right.
We all thought Collaros' career was going downhill from injury. He had struggled for a couple of years. This isn't the same guy that lit it up with Hamilton at the peak of his career there. And he's done wondrous things. I mean, he's been the MOP the last 2 seasons there. I think I was reading there's a CFL article on the Bombers depth chart I was just reading earlier today that had a note in there, on the CFL website. I forget who wrote it. I apologize. But Zach Collaros, if he could win MOP again this season, only other quarterback or last quarterback to do that, I think, was Doug Flutie in the CFL, which is pretty darn good company. I'm always waiting for the moment where it doesn't work out, though, right? I'm waiting for the moment where Collaros gets injured again. I'm waiting for the moment for the regression there, even at, with the offensive line aging a little bit more. Are they going to take a step back? I'm with you on the age thing of, when is it going to break? Because I look at the roster and I look at the names on the roster, and for the Bombers, like, this still looks like a stacked roster that should be able to compete for a spot in the Grey Cup once again this season, if you look at it based on the names and how they've played. But you're always wondering, are they going to take that step back? And I think that's a concern there. I think that's a concern Adam has, specifically with their defensive line from the notes he sent in to us. It's another year older. Is this going to be a team that the scary offense bails out the defense? What do you think about the wide receiving core of the offense as a whole? I mean, we talked about Collaros, but with how good the offense was last year, now you bring in Kenny Lawler. I mean, I think we were all kind of surprised by that one.
I hate to say it, but I think that this is the team that you would want. I would have been content if they didn't sign Collaros and they went with their backup or someone new, like with the age and stuff. This is that kind of the year, but maybe the team will keep it around for one more. What, Collaros is here for 4 more, 3 more?
3 more, I think.
3 more, this one and 2 more, whatever. Yeah, but still, he's gonna go to 40. Ooh. But this year, we're talking about this year. I don't know. I'm surprised. Like, how is that receiving core? They just said, screw it. We paid a fine this year. Let's pay a fine next year. Like, or I don't know, all the hush money. Like, I'm really curious where. I wish there was cap friendly for this, because I want to know how this all fits in, because I don't know. Yeah, I thought we were talking about how one of them would have to go, kind of, right? We didn't think Bailey was even going to come back, but then they somehow get Lawler and Bailey and Dembski and and all those guys. So I don't know. I don't know. Is there enough playing time for all of them that's going to make a huge difference?
That's what I'm wondering too, and I'm almost waiting for like a training camp cut or two, right? Because just to trim the roster down. But it's like, who is going to be cut? Like, I would say the lowest on the totem pole here. I mean, there are some lower down ones as well, right? The receivers that we don't know as much about, but Got Carlton Agadosi, they were high on in the 2 games he played before he got injured. He's kind of, I think, that first backup currently. Rashid Bailey decided to take a pay cut to come back here to Winnipeg when he could have gone and probably become, number 2, number 3 receiver somewhere else. Maybe now he's looking at number 4 on the depth chart. Do we see him in a lesser role this year after his 700 yards last season? But I wonder if, to me, I would be shocked to see a guy like that let go after he took that pay cut to come make it work here in Winnipeg, right? So I don't know. I don't know if how you fit everybody into this offense. And it makes me wonder, for a guy like Dalton Schoen, who put up 1,400 yards last year in his rookie season, what does a sophomore season look like for Dalton Schoen here this year? As with all of these other tools in place, do you think he can produce at the same level he has, or are we going to see quite a drop off? Not which might come due to the ball going elsewhere.
I don't know. Would you have not thought that some team would have made an adjustment last year? Why do we think that they're going to make an adjustment this year if they couldn't do one at any point last year? Because they had a whole, I don't know. I don't think he'll completely drop off. Is he going to have the exact same numbers? No, because especially now you got Lawler, you still got Dempsey, you got all those other guys. I think that, but I think even if he gets double covered, it's not going to be like he's double covered, so then Collaros has no one to throw to. It's Schoen's double covered, so now Lawler's wide open, right?
Right.
I think that's why his numbers will drop, not necessarily him underperforming.
Yeah, I agree. I agree there as well. I think it's going to be hard to produce at the level he did, but the other thought, we haven't really talked about the running back position. That is one of the players I'm watching most this year is Brady Oliveira. 1,000 yards rushing last year for him in his first full year as a starter for Winnipeg. He really didn't have a great start to the season. Second half of the season, he turned it on and still put 1,000 yards up on the board in a team that, has all those weapons at wide receiver. What kind of season do we see from Brady Oliveira this year? I would like to think he can hit 1,000 yards again. How many could he have hit last year if he had a full 18-game season of consistency there? And what's the limit, I guess, is the question. Do you think he's a guy that could challenge for that, league-leading rusher role potentially? Or is it just with the additions to the passing game, is it now on the back burner for the run game?
I don't know. I'm kind of in the boat with Adam. Adam's not a big fan of Oliveira. I'm not as harsh on him as he is, but that 1,000 yards so snuck up on me. I'm kind of like, why do we keep giving this guy the ball when we got Augustine, McRae, my boy Mike Miller, my fantasy hero? We got all these other guys in the backfield. But I guess he did get the job done. He only got 4 touchdowns, 5, 1 receiving and 4 rushing, but that just seems like your running back should be one of your go-to guys, but it seemed like even down in the goal line, they were play action throwing it or, something like that. So it seemed like the run game came more when near the end of the season, and they had a lot of receiving injuries too at one point, right? So unless that's what all these signings are for, is to prepare for that. But I don't know. He's going to be in the top 3 or 4 because no other team's going to run, right? Like he'll be that. But is he going to be the dominant guy like Harris was? Is he going to be the dominant guy like, other people have been? No, I don't think so.
All right, let's take a look at their schedule here yet for Winnipeg as well. They start the season at home against Hamilton. Why do we not have the Grey Cup rematch in week 1? That's one of my biggest bones to pick with the schedule. They only play the Argos once. Which is at home in week 17. Andrew Harris finally comes home to Winnipeg because he didn't last season.
If he's healthy.
If he's healthy by week 17 of the season. That's one of the biggest misses to me is I think week 1 should always be a rematch of the Grey Cup. Right?
I think so. Thursday night or opening Thursday or something, yeah.
Yeah, week 17 against the Argos Grey Cup rematch isn't a juicy matchup to me at all because we're at a point in the season where, these teams that went to the Grey Cup last year could, be 2-win teams, for example. If something goes wrong for Winnipeg, or Toronto, or, one team could be, bottom of the standings, one could be at the top, both could be in the middle. Like it doesn't carry the same weight as it would to say these are the exact same two teams with some additions going head to head in week one. So that to me is a big miss there, but they do play the Ticats at home in week one. Their schedule early season is pretty much home and road, trading them off there. Bye weeks 8, 16, and 19 for a team that, I think tracks to be higher up in the standings. I like that setup there. A couple of buys, late season where week 16 onwards, you're playing 2 games at a time, or week 15 onwards, 2 games, buy 2 games, buy 2 games. Like that should help the team, I think, stay a little healthy for that end of season, especially if they're in a position to rest guys. I don't know if they will be. I like the schedule for Winnipeg. I think it's one of the easier ones of the teams we've looked at so far.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not high, so this is my hot take. I've said it before, but my hot take is I don't think they'll be the powerhouse. I think age will catch up to them. My little note I have says I'm still thinking they'll be getting Slurpees at 7-Eleven by November because that's what their record will be. 7-Eleven come end of November. Yeah, I don't think so. I think stacked receiving core. Claros at 35, defense and O-line aging. Coaching can only do so much, Ryan. That's why I know that's I can admit I'd rather be harder on my team than be one of those people who completely I can't do it. Like I see their flaws and I'm more because if I say 7-Eleven and then they do anything better than that, I'm happy. Right, like they overperformed for me. Like we were just talking about, we lived through the Drew Willie years. We lived through 29 years, Ryan. I will say they're going to go 7-Eleven in the hopes that they'll prove me wrong. They listen to this podcast. It's obvious.
That might be one of the hottest takes yet, I think, of the ones we've given out on here. I like the bold takes. I like the bold predictions. I like that you backed it up with what you've been talking about there as well. I don't see it. I think this is going to be a team that's near the top of the standings once again this year. The team is going to regress over time, but I also think they've done a decent job of bringing in new pieces to supplement some of those aging vets there as well and rotate them in. So that's what we've got on the Bombers here. And, those are our 5 teams in the West Division, which means now I think just to wrap this up, we get into the point of let's make our West Division predictions here. How do we want to do this? Do we want to rotate through like 5, 5, 5, 4, or do we want to just go 5-1 each list off what we've
just
got?
5-1 each, I think is fine.
You want to go first?
Sure. So I'll start from the bottom here. I got 5th place in the West. I predict the Saskatchewan Roughriders at 5-13. I got. We all know what I got. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers, Slurpee Capital 7-11 in 4th. In 3rd, I didn't do the math to see if this is mathematically possible, but this is kind of my range here. I got Edmonton 9-9 in 3rd. Calgary in 2nd, 11-7, with the BC Lions getting 1st place at 13-5.
Oh wow, very high on the BC Lions, like you called out earlier.
I don't think VA will be that much of a drop off. It's not clearly Captain Canada, but I think he'll do enough. He's not going to do a 3rd inches sneak all the way around the outside like Rourke did, but I think they'll get things done.
All right, let's go to Adam's left, or Adam's next, because I'm still thinking for mine. Adam didn't send in any records, but in 1st place in the West Division, he's got the Calgary Stampeders, saying they still have the best run game in the league. That's going to propel them to 1st in the West Division. He's got Winnipeg in at number 2, saying, look at that receiving core. Look at it. Don't look at the defense, because he's not as high on the defense there. BC in at number 3, saying VA has a very consistently inconsistent year. At number 4, he's got the Edmonton Elks. Not a crossover playoff spot for them, unfortunately, but they do get a home W, according to Adam. And Saskatchewan, he says, blow it all up. They're getting 5th in the West Division, is Adam's pick there. For my picks, I'll go top. I'll go bottom up for suspense. At number 5, I also have Saskatchewan. I think that's a team that I want to. I think they'll be better, like I said, than last season, but struggle a little bit to see them vaulting ahead of these other teams. Here's where you and I disagree a bit. I have BC in at number 4. They don't stand out to me as a team that I'm upper echelon high on in terms of what they've done this year. I think they did lose some pieces there that I am concerned with. On the defensive side of the ball, a couple big names there that they've lost. Brian Burnham's out. Really, the question marks of the run game and what are we going to get from Vernon Adams? I think he'll be good. I don't think he'll be Nathan Rourke good. I would be shocked if he is, and if he is, put him in the Hall of Fame. But I have BC finishing at 4th in the West, and a bit of a disappointing season there for them. I'll put Edmonton in at number 3 as well. Really wanted to put them up into number 2. Could you imagine the Elks going winless at home last season, and then they get a home playoff game this year? But I've got Edmonton in at number 3. Again, I'm really high on them. I think they'll be improved this season quite a bit, and so I feel comfortable putting them in that middle spot there. I've got Calgary at number 2. I think Jake Mayer is going to have a fantastic season this year. I think they're still a good team across the board. But I do have Winnipeg at number 1 in the West Division. I just, on paper, I see what they have available to them, and the big key, if everybody stays healthy, I think they should be able to win the West Division once again. But the West, to me, is a coin flip. Always. It's, when I'm talking about one team finishing 4th versus a team finishing 2nd, it's separated by like 2 wins. I think we're going to see a lot of teams just above or just around the 500 mark there. So that's what we've all got for our West Division standings. What do you got for your West Division playoff picks here, Trey? So who did you have? You had, remind me, what were your top 3 teams, I guess?
I'd have Edmonton going into Calgary in the semis, and then BC sitting in the wings in first. So Battle of Alberta, let's give it to Calgary. And then Calgary into BC. Give it to BC. You'll take the home teams both times.
All right, so you got BC going off to the Grey Cup there. We'll go back to Adam next here. He's got, let's see. He has, I guess, BC going into Winnipeg, Winnipeg winning that one and going to Calgary, Calgary winning the West Final and going off to the Grey Cup there. Like you, I had Edmonton going into Calgary, and I also have the Stampeders winning that one at home, coming in to face the Bombers in the West Division Final. Oh, what do I want to... See, my head actually legitimately says the Bombers, but I'm scared people are going to be calling me a homer there, but... Also, I'm told I have Calgary Stampeder bias also, so now I'm in a logjam here.
It's a tie, man. It's a tie. I don't know.
I'm going to take the Bombers to go back to the Grey Cup, 4th straight season. I think, they've played really good at home the past couple of years. They always play tight games with Calgary, and I think they're going to get it over. They're going to go over the top, when it matters most there. Chalk up the playoff, success maybe, and the inexperience of Jake Mayer. Didn't have a great playoff performance last season. I'll give Winnipeg the bit of the nod there over Calgary in the West Final, but wouldn't be surprised to be wrong there. Also, so there we go. That's what we've got for our West Division picks. Adam's internet's finally working. He popped in the YouTube chat to tell us, so we all just assured that Saskatchewan will finish first. As we all said, they'll be last. Yeah, we could be entirely wrong on our predictions. We generally are. Don't take these picks and go to Vegas, is my general rule of thumb there. Anything else on the West Division you want to talk about, Trey, or should we wrap things up?
I'm good to wrap things up, Ryan. I think we did it. The schedule sucks. That's about it.
Sounds good. All right, let me flip over to my other screen here, and this is the tab I want to show for the video. There we go. As we get into wrapping things up here, that was our West Division preview. Next week, we will be previewing the East Division in a similar format. So we'll take a look at the 4 teams out East, make our predictions there as well, talk about the major storylines. Same time, same place, Wednesday night, 9:30 Winnipeg time. Adjust to your other time zones accordingly. Make sure you subscribe over on the YouTube feed there to join us there live, or you can catch the audio podcast generally the morning after in your favorite podcast feeds. If you want to follow us on social media, we're on Twitter at CF Countdown Pod. Same thing with Facebook, facebook.com/CF Countdown Pod. You can follow us there. Make sure you check out all the other great shows from around the Canadian Football Podcast Network at CF Pod Network on Twitter. You can find me at Cooper Trooper 42 on the Twitterverse. There. Trey, where can people find what do you all got going on these days when you're not here?
When I'm not here, you can find me at Twitter at Trey Harness Link. Still doing the horse racing grind, mine. It's a busy time of year. There's at least I think a stake race a week, or if not even more, right now in North America. So a lot of money getting dished out in horse racing right now. I have my horse racing news podcast show. Not sure what to call it. Wednesdays at 1 Central and Saturdays at 10 a.m. Central. We're going to take the show on the road, too. I'm going to Calgary next weekend, as long as the smoke is fine. Watch what they got going on there. They have a mental awareness day on the track there. And then exactly a month today, it's the Pepsi North American Cup in Toronto that the horses race for $1 million at least. So I got my tickets booked for that one. And I'm hoping to I got my tickets for Ticats and Argos on the Sunday. So,
oh, nice.
Pretty excited. There was not many tickets left. I forgot about Hamilton playing and that they travel well to Toronto. So I wasn't thinking there was going to be hard to get tickets.
And also it's the Argos home opener, I believe, as well. So you can be there for the banner raising. We're working out outfits, right? We talked about what does a Bomber fan wear when going to a Ticats and Argos game where they raise the banner for beating the Bombers.
See, the like the purist in me is like, just wear the Bomber jersey, man. But then there's also me like, maybe I'll put the Jays one on or something. So I have my blue, but I can blend in a little bit. I don't know. We'll see.
I still think my suggestion, you wear the Bomber jersey and you wear Adams or Eider's hat to go with it.
Yeah. I think they'll embrace me as long. Well, there's gonna be a lot of Ticat fans, so I think that they'll be too busy with the Argo fans, and the Argo fans will be too busy with the Ticat fans. That I'll be able to sneak in undetected.
I like it. Make sure you check out also the other members of the podcast crew that aren't here tonight. Mike is on Twitter at Mike Garrell. Always busy with all of the different hockey things he's got going on there. Adam's on Twitter at AdamStewart1. He's doing a lot of farming stuff right now. It's started a big old farm season there for him. So make sure you check out all of that stuff if you want to learn more about Adam's farming endeavors or his real push to get the Arizona Coyotes to move to Saskatoon. I saw Adam was pushing hard for that today. Maybe putting in a bid himself. I wonder. Of course, I say this seeing that he's in the YouTube chat and listening to everything I say. Adam, you're not using the podcast money for that. We'd go bankrupt. I think that's pretty much it for us. I guess the last thing here also is, once again, if you want to chat with us in between episodes, we're here once a week, every Wednesday. But if you want to chat CFL with us in between, come join the CFC Discord community, and we'll talk about all things CFL, training camps. Games are starting up soon, so fun chats during those, as well. Additional content during the season, perhaps there also, and fun events that you can get involved in as they come out. We're still in the early stages of it, so we're still working out, exactly how we're using it, but don't miss out on all the fun there. Check the description on the video or audio, and there's a link in there that you can come join us in our Discord community. Let's see. Just checking the YouTube comments. Anything else before we head out? Adam says, would $50 a piece buy the Coyotes and move them to Theodore? Our locker rooms are better. You know what, Adam, as the official, non-official podcast sponsor of the Theodore Buffaloes, wouldn't want to crowd the locker room. You know, we got to stick with the brand we've got. I think there we've got a good team in place there. Big season, big championship season there for Theodore Buffaloes.
Patrick Mahomes tweeted about them coming on down to KC, so I mean that's tough to compete with that too.
Oh yeah. Hey, yeah. Where will the Arizona Coyotes go if Bettman ever lets them finally leave? Whatever podcast platform you're listening on, we always appreciate if you do the fun things such as like, comment, subscribe, rate, review, share the show with your friends, help us grow the show. We always appreciate that. On behalf of Trey and myself, thank you for listening. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.